think it's going to be really, really dependent on the creativity of AI developers and AI applications, especially from the long tail. If they're able to develop long tail businesses using AI and using data, they're the market. They have to create the businesses, and that has not happened at scale yet. You don't see a ton of AI businesses that are surfacing, like who are their customers, what are they paying them for, and those AI businesses are going to be dependent on new data so that their products and services could be differentiated from the market.
Hello, and welcome back to The Long Game. My guest today is Brett Farmiloe, who's a serial four-time entrepreneur who has traveled to all 50 states in the US. He's also helped Hugh Jackman start a business, and he's currently the CEO and founder of Featured, which helps you get featured in major publications. We talk a lot about the changing world of SEO and content in this. We obviously, there's AI everywhere, and the ability to write content cheaply using AI has shifted the landscape a lot, but there's also still a lot of need for experts and people with unique knowledge to share. When we think about experts that have 20, 30, 40-year long careers, and they've never necessarily been the top 1% that's written books or given talks, there's still a lot of uncaptured knowledge. And so Featured particularly focuses on that. But I think it's a broader conversation about what is the value of this knowledge and where does it go in this future landscape of AI. Brett is a great entrepreneur. He has interviewed really interesting people, like the person that Moneyball, the movie, is about. And we talk about fainting goats and so much more. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I'll catch you in the next one. So what's Hugh Jackman like?
Hugh Jackman is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's
Is he a good entrepreneur? I've always wondered if like celebrity entrepreneurs are actually, good. I mean, I guess you don't want to say anything bad about him, but how sophisticated was he, shall we say?
Put me on the spot. Hey, you get to be the A-list for a reason. You got a lot of initiative and drive and ambition, and that extends from acting to coffee. So, he started Laughing Man and got acquired by Keurig, and I think that's a great exit.
So how did that even happen? Like, walk us through, you helped build a company with Hugh Jackman. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, luck. I think so. I had exited. I had left a previous job. I tried to start a mobile app company. Found out pretty quickly that the market size was not there. I also didn't have the technical abilities to build iPhone apps, and so was kind of like in need of the next gig. And a friend said, "Hey, we got this client. You'll probably fit right in and enjoy it." So it turned out to be Hugh Jackman launching Laughing Man Coffee and Tea, and so stepped right into that. And it was really, really cool. This was back in the days where I had the tweet deck popped open, and you have ways to manage Twitter replies and stuff like that. And he sent out a tweet. Next hour, he was on Rachel Ray. That night, he was doing a launch party in Tribeca. And in one day, we launched a company, and it was really cool.
That's crazy. That's awesome. What was like, I mean, obviously launching companies is not always like that, where you have immediate reach from day one. But what did you learn from kind of doing it in that approach that you were able to carry forward with other ventures you've done?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, like whether you're an A-lister or just an aspiring entrepreneur, it's you gotta try stuff, you gotta measure stuff, see what works, double down on the stuff that does, and ditch the stuff that doesn't. And that's basically like the formula. Yeah. So,
the normal playbook. Maybe you have different inputs and resources, yeah. But yeah, same thing.
Whatever stage you're at, that's the grind.
That's cool. That's very cool. And then, so we'll obviously get to what you're doing now, but you've also had kind of like a storied entrepreneurial career and done traveling and kind of, I don't know if vagabonding is the right word, but RV plus 50 states.
Yeah. So when I was coming out of school, I founded a career education website that helped college students kind of figure out what to do after graduation. And I think that the problem that a lot of college students face even today is what do I do now that I graduate? What's the right next step? I've been, on this track of high school to college, and now what do I do? And so I kind of met that problem by hopping in an RV and interviewing over 300 people across 38 states and 16,000 miles about their career journeys and documenting those journeys on a website for people to turn to. And so we interviewed everyone from Michael Jordan's shoe designer to, at the time, Matt Flannery, who just started up Kiva.org. He was like right in the throes of that. And so like really got a good opportunity to look at how people make decisions about their careers.
And this is like 18-year-old, 19-year-old you that is now talking to these famous people.
This is like just came out of Tucson at U of A and hopped in an RV that looked like Breaking Bad. And so we went on that journey, did about 75 interviews for the first summer, went to go work as an auditor. Our website started to take off, and auditing spreadsheets turned out not as fun as driving an RV around. And so I left, got another corporate sponsor to fund the second journey, and then ended up going to work for that corporate sponsor for the next few years. So really, really cool, journey. Wrote a book about it, and learned a lot. It's like pretty much the foundation for where I'm at.
Did you have a goal with it? So like you came out of college and you said, I don't know what I want to do. I go on a website. This seems cool. Let me start doing this. Like, was there a plan, or was it just kind of follow your nose?
The plan was hop in the RV and see where the it takes you, and I guess it's a great metaphor for everything. Like, you get in, you have a destination that you think you want to go to, but then there's all types of stuff that gets in the way of that journey, and you end up at an entirely different destination. So for us, the idea was, can we go on this road trip? Can we get it funded? Like that was starting
just
point.
The goal straight in front of you, like, is how do we make this thing happen?
Can we get a check and buy an RV and fulfill this, dream of getting on the road? Check mark. All right, now what's next? How can we actually take the information that these people are providing us in these interviews and make it useful for college students to actually take in, make better decisions based off their career journeys? And then from there, it was like we actually had at one point like thousands of students as part of our program going out in their local communities and interviewing leaders and contributing content to our site. So I think the whole thing kind of took a life of its own, and then a Great Recession kind of hit, and the name of the road trip was called Pursue the Passion. And so that didn't resonate too well in 2008 when stuff was hitting the fan, and had to get a reality check. But I think the moral of the story is the hardest part is opening the door of that RV and getting in and making the decision to actually drive off and set on that journey. And I think that's the thing that we learned is like there's a lot of people that never take that initiative. And so for us, like that's been the ignition for me starting 4 different companies is like, if you could do it in an RV, you could do it in a tech company, you could do it in the services business.
Is there a shelf life on that though? Like 18, nothing to lose. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Do you think you can't do it later in life?
It's not that you can't do it. It's that you have a lot more excuses not to do it. So right now, like I've got 3 kids in a minivan. Like I'm not getting in an RV and sleeping on people's couches for sure.
Yeah.
So, but is there a different type of adventure? Yeah. It's like starting an adventure back, tech platform. So, where I'm at now is probably even crazier than hopping in an RV and traveling around for 4 months.
So you hop in the RV, you travel around, you have a bunch of good conversations. Was there any particular one that to this day was a spark, an aha moment, or you look back now and it's like, oh, a lot of my life is shaped by that one conversation, or did they all blend together?
I think a lot of quotes have resonated with me. Early on, we interviewed this celebrity chef. She wasn't a celebrity at the time, but Alex Guarnaschelli. And one of her quotes was like, "Who cares if you're the clown if you could dance in the circus?" I thought that resonated really well. Another quote of hers was like,
"Who cares if you're the clown if you can dance?" So what does that mean?
So if I'm helping Hugh Jackman launch a coffee company, who cares if I'm the social media manager doing the tweet tech stuff? Like,
Gotcha.
It's part of the journey. Like it's the part of the circus, So that was cool. And the other one that she said was like around Halloween, like if the costume doesn't fit, take it off and be the next thing. So, thinking about career decisions and things like that, sometimes it's as simple as that. Like rocking a featured t-shirt today. Like if this t-shirt doesn't fit, like you can go take it off and do something else, So I think that's cool. But I think probably the best one that was probably the most unexpected was in rural Tennessee. We got this random email from a fainting goat farmer that encouraged us to
As
come
one
out.
does all the time. I got 3 this week already.
But so we took a chance. We went out to her fainting goat farm, and there was like 75 different goats. And that one was really cool because fainting goats actually faint. They get scared. They have some paralysis that takes place. They like can't move their legs. They fall over. It's really kind of funny. You
Go
can
look
YouTube
it up. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
YouTube if you haven't seen it.
YouTube it for sure. You'll have a laugh. But meanwhile, like while my friend was chasing these goats around, and they're fainting one after one, like there was this baby fainting goat that was right next to me, right, and it wasn't fainting. It wasn't scared of anything. And it turns out that like it's a learned fear with fainting goats. Like the babies are fearless and the adults get fearful. So the babies don't faint until they learn fear. And so a lot of what entrepreneurs need to do and what I try to do daily is like, how do you channel that fear in the right ways so that it doesn't paralyze you and you can make good decisions and keep pushing, because there's a lot of stuff that will stop you as you build companies, as you make career decisions and things like that. So that's probably the one that stood by me. It wasn't anything that was said. It was something that was experienced.
Baby goats teaching you life lessons at 18.
It's so corny, man. It's so cheesy, but it's so true.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of it, though, is we can take insights from so many different places in so many different ways, and it's how do you interpret what you experience or what you hear, and then what do you do with it? And for you, that was impactful, and it led you on this 4x entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, no doubt. It's like you always have the power to get up out of this chair and walk out the door and take a left, and who knows where it leads.
So connect the dots then to Featured, and like what was that journey? So recession happens, you work with the sponsor for a bit. Like, where do you go from then?
Yep. So then I tried to launch a mobile app company. That failed in 6 months. I tried to basically I'm originally from the Bay Area in Northern California, a huge San Francisco Giants fan, now down in Scottsdale, and the Giants had just won the World Series. And so I was kind of like upset that I wasn't going to be able to, the World Series trophy tour wasn't coming to Scottsdale. So I created an app that allowed San Francisco Giants fans like me to augment their photos and essentially insert a World Series trophy and like decorate themselves in Giants gear. And so it got downloaded like a ton of, like hundreds of thousands of times. There's all these photos. So it's like, you know what? There's something to that app. We should market it to all baseball teams. And so that was my like exit from that job was, let's go sell to minor league baseball teams this app. And it turned out that market size was very limited. There's only like 300 teams, and their willingness to pay is like $500 one time. So like very quickly that failed.
Yeah.
And so then I went to help Hugh start that company, and then used that experience to launch my own like agency. And so I worked for a couple of years just as a freelancer, got my website to rank on page 1 for the term digital marketing company. And when that happened, I started to get calls from all over the world from people who were looking for digital marketing services. And so decided to live up to the search ranking, actually started a digital marketing company, hired our first employee, hired our second employee, grew that to servicing more than 500 small businesses, about 20 different employees, and ended up just selling that because I wanted to focus on Featured. And so where Featured was born was the biggest challenge at our agency, which was how do you build visibility for small businesses? And so the thing that we found was that small business owners have an abundance of knowledge to share, but nowhere to really share it. And so we created Featured as a platform that allowed them to share that expertise and have that expertise be put to good use by being featured in articles. And so that's where I was at 3-4 years ago.
So even before we get into the mechanics of Featured, is that kind of how you, I mean, if you were talking to an entrepreneur and mentoring them, or someone who even wants to explore being an entrepreneur, is it kind of take that leap, do something, and then listen and look for additional problems and then double down on those? And or is there like a different, is it just kind of like you follow your gut and it felt like the right move at the time? So what is that methodology, or is it more instinctual?
I think it's who's paying you. What are they paying you for? And how many more people are like that person, and how big is the market, and how fast can you grow it? So I think that like a lot of it is around validation, So going back to the company that failed, It's like, who's paying you for your mobile app? Oh, you haven't made any money yet? Like, there's been hundreds of thousands of downloads, but you've made $12 off of advertising. Great. Like, go sell an app before you build it and see if there's market validation before you actually quit your job and jump in and try to start a company and, set the thermostat to 83 degrees so you're, saving money. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that's it, is you got to find one person to pay you, find more people to pay you, justify the market, and justify, the product that you have to find market fit. So for us, with, the reason why I decided to sell my agency was, there's an unmet need for building visibility, building backlinks within articles. There's a lot of people who demand that service. And so can you create a platform that essentially, fills that void? So I think that's the biggest difference. And the thing that I learned over the last decade is, like, market size matters. And then your ability to deliver that product consistently to a defined customer is all that matters in terms of, building a business.
Given you've been doing it for a while, I'm assuming you found that product market fit of people paying you.
It's always elusive. Like, it could always be improved, and it's not like you just plug something into an outlet and it fit one day. Like, I think that it's always a grind to try to get to that point, and you consistently, as an entrepreneur, have signals that let you know if you found fit. And one of those biggest indicators is, like, churn. How many customers are canceling, and what is that percentage like, and what is that actually telling you? So consistently, you're receiving these different signals. And looking at the growth metrics in terms of, like, engagement, for us as a platform, it's looking at, like, answers submitted, the number of people that we've actually placed in articles. Are those metrics going up? So the accounting is a great foundation. I mentioned I was an auditor, and having those metrics are really important to make sure that you have found product market fit.
And in terms of the fundamental mechanics, you help small businesses typically, yes, and get them placed inside of articles for content, which drives to backlinks, traffic, leads, etc. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So
pretty much.
And then in terms of this particular age that we're in, I mean, the SEO game has been around for 20 plus years, but the internet is almost kind of going through its next wave of evolution with AI. How much does this come up in the conversations that you're having with small businesses? And how much is it impacting your strategy, or not at all?
Yeah, all the time. Comes up all the time. Is
it like a fear thing, or like a curiosity thing, or like what's the content of the conversation?
It's in everything. So what I would say is, fundamentally, businesses need customers, and to get customers, they need visibility with those customers, and that's a target that always is changing. Where is customer attention today? And right now, like, there's 115 million subscribers to ChatGPT, and there's 400 million monthly OpenAI users. There's a lot of attention that's going there in terms of customers. So as a platform, or any business, how do you start to get visibility within that platform? And right now, there's not a lot of options. Like, you got to have, like, a native integration, or you have to take your chances with their, like, app store, which doesn't seem to have great adoption and great visibility. And so, like, ultimately, the businesses that will win will figure out how to get visibility where customer attention is. And so it seems like right now, here in 2025, you've got OpenAI, you've got, other AI platforms like Gemini, you've got LinkedIn, in terms of a lot of attention goes there. So what's the next platform? Like, where's the next, like, thing where customer attention is going to start to gravitate? And I think that those companies that can figure it out are the ones that are going to emerge.
You're the content guy, right? So what are you seeing right now? What advice are you giving to clients, and what are you exploring?
You see a lot of success around this acronym that came out a while ago with Google, which is EEAT: experience, expertise, authority, and trust. I think human knowledge and human expertise is more important than ever, especially as a lot of people have gravitated towards, AI written content. So there's been an explosion. It's probably like one of the top 2 use cases of ChatGPT. People will go there, they'll create content, they'll post it on their website, they'll put it on social, whatever it is. And so eventually, like, if that's the main way that people are using to create content, how do you differentiate it? And the differentiator is our expertise, our experiences, the stuff that we're talking about right here in this podcast. So that's stuff that AI can't unlock. So that's the extra thing that I'm seeing a lot of companies use is they'll use AI as a base. They'll insert experience, they'll insert expertise, they'll add their own authority, their own trust. That seems to be the recipe that's really working, from a content creation in 2025.
You think that's like from a strategy perspective that you're advising for small businesses? Is this something that you're already doing, or is it something you're observing as being a trend but not adopting yet?
If you look at when I was running my agency, probably about 50% of all of the revenue that we made was like content creation. And when I sit here, there's I'm in a co-working space right now. There's a couple agencies that operate out of here that do what we did, and their content revenue has just been depleted.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it's do it yourself now. You're, as a small business, if you've got a blog, if you've got some sort of newsletter or whatever it is, you're able to pretty easily create content and then put your own spin on it. And so that's been not democratized, but leveled, and it's more accessible than ever. So, am I seeing a lot of that? Yeah, and platforms like ours are making it really easy to start to incorporate some of those elements to then differentiate it before it actually, gets published.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think one of the things that I perpetually come back to is it's maybe not democratized is the right word, but it's been a lot cheaper to create content that's maybe not as good, but it can be pretty good, right? And so in that world, how do you continue to have that authentic expert voice that you're talking about while also maintaining the volume that you want to achieve for, how many articles are you in, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's making the connection between the two. There's still, going back to the road trip, the thing that surprised me the most was how many people were willing to sit down for an hour and share their life stories and secrets with 4 college kids in an RV. And the reality is that not everyone gets to be on your podcast. Not everyone gets an outlet to share the stuff that they've accumulated. And people inherently need that outlet because it feels like you spend your lifetime working and you're accumulating all of this stuff. And at some point you want to start sharing that knowledge, giving back, and have that be meaningful and make a difference in people's lives. So I think inherently there's a need to share that knowledge. There's also business need in terms of you need to connect with customers, you need visibility in order to grow your business. And then if you look at from a publisher side of things, there's a need to incorporate some of that knowledge so that your content's differentiated. So I think that there's still a lot of loose problems and loose motivations that our platforms like ours are looking to connect, so that there's triple wins all around. There's wins for the person who's sharing, there's wins for the publisher who's publishing, and ultimately there's wins for the reader who's ultimately consuming that, who is also very cognizant that I don't want to just consume AI knowledge because I can actually have a better experience myself on ChatGPT because I can customize what that adventure looks like versus consuming, at an actual destination.
What does all of this look like for Featured in 5 years?
Well, I think that if we can create a platform that makes it fun, easy, and worthwhile to share knowledge, in the sense that if Featured could be the place where people share, manage, and ultimately monetize their knowledge, then it becomes really interesting. Because again, going back to it, it's 5% of our knowledge is actually online. And that's the stuff that has been trained into all these AI models. So at what point do we start to hit that cross off on the graph where it's all right, we need more knowledge. We need more knowledge to feed these systems to start to unlock it. Otherwise, we're just in this cycle. And so if we ever get to that point, we're going to have to tap into expertise that hasn't been shared, experiences that haven't been shared. And we have to make that really fun and beneficial for people to depart that knowledge, so that it's useful for people on the other side, people who are looking to get answers to questions. So I think that Featured could play a really interesting role in unlocking that knowledge.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, from a SEO perspective, I feel like so many people started their careers in SEO. So I started my career in SEO, kind of building, cookie stuff or keyword stuffed articles for WordPress sites and doing all that good stuff. But there's always been value in kind of going niche and long tail. So rather than just searching for digital marketing agency, even though you were able to rank for that, doing digital marketing agency in Scottsdale that focuses on Web3, right? So like the more niche and long tail that you go, the less competition there is. So therefore, it's easier to get value from kind of many niche things all at once. And so I wonder if content ends up being the same thing, where all these LLMs are trained on, like you said, the 5% of knowledge that's out there in the public domain in the internet. But then there's diminishing returns on more of that just generic public information. But then if you start training models on unique data sets that are very niche, very long tail of these experts that you have from a Q&A perspective that have rich story careers that they've never shared, they've never had this outlet to be able to communicate with, that is interesting of being able to see how much better could LLMs be with this hyper, singular person's experiences and data points that could then layer in to build out a much more robust LLM.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key to that, because I do think that if that's the reality, it's got to be beneficial for everyone. It's got to be beneficial
like all parties that are involved in that.
Yeah, it's got to be beneficial for the person who's sharing. It's got to be beneficial for the AI platform, and it's got to be beneficial for the end user who ultimately is going to benefit from that knowledge unlock. So, it's not enough to just like get a pat on the back to say, hey, that knowledge was great. It really impacted Joe's life. Like that doesn't happen. So you have to figure out the infrastructure, and that's what we're figuring out is like, how do you figure out the infrastructure to make that a triple win amongst all those different parties?
Recently heard that a publishing company is giving checks to authors for being able to use their content, to license their content, their books, into AI training data. And so already we're kind of seeing this exploration of when a person has unique knowledge, there is some value to that. And in terms of how much value and how do you price it and how do you do all this kind of stuff, there's a lot to figure out still. But there's so much more knowledge that is either locked up in books and IP, or to your point, in people's heads that hasn't been tapped at all. It's interesting. Yeah, I think you guys are in a very unique spot to potentially capture that as the AI world progresses.
Yeah, and it's like, if you look at the value that we're unlocking today, it goes back to just what is Featured doing? It's like allowing people to share and manage their knowledge. The monetization part, and the reason why, getting featured is so important is because that's the monetization. So like we need additional monetization.
Right.
To really, really help the majority of people share their experience and to be able to monetize from that, because like everyone's an expert in something. Everyone has some sort of knowledge to share. Everyone's got some unique story that's valuable. Like I inherently, believe that, and that's like the core thing for our platform is be able to democratize thought leadership. And so if that's true, how do you make it beneficial for anybody to do? So you got to figure out the monetization piece to ultimately, and that's the market that's yet to be developed. Like to your point, there's Microsoft's running around and paying authors for licenses for their books so that they could do stuff like that, and that could be smoke, that could be real. Like I think that the market hasn't developed yet, and so it should be really interesting in the next couple of years to see how it evolves.
And to your point, it's follow the money, right? How do you get paid, and from whom are you getting paid? And if you can't figure out that piece, then there's probably not a business there. Doesn't mean that there's not value. It just means that the structure that you have is not going to work out, and keep iterating until you find it.
I think it's going to be really, really dependent on the creativity of AI developers and AI applications, especially from the long tail. If they're able to develop businesses, long tail businesses using AI and using data, they're the market. Like that's what the whole idea.
If they can use that long tail data, then they will be buyers of it. Therefore, there's the market.
Yeah, they have to create the businesses, and that has not happened at scale yet. You don't see a ton of AI businesses that are surfacing. Like, who are their customers? What are they paying them for? And those AI businesses are going to be dependent on new data so that their products and services could be differentiated from the market. So I think that that's the flow that I'm closely watching to see how that market evolves. But that's ultimately where a business like ours can unlock a lot of value.
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of the focus right now is on building downstream applications that use LLMs, but they're building features or capabilities or whatever, a copilot, but very few are actually playing the LLM space of the foundational models, and that's because they cost 5 million to $1 billion to train, and the big companies are already doing it with OpenAI, Gemini, Facebook, Meta, and I guess DeepSeek, but that's not a big company. But it's been, every entrepreneur I talk to is afraid to kind of enter into that space because they're duking it out. It's kind of a race to the bottom for whoever can train the best model for the least amount of money. But if you start differentiating and you say, no, we're not going to try to, replace the foundation models. We're particularly focused in this one niche area. We have the foundational model, plus we fine tune with all of our additional supplemental data that we have unique licensing and content agreements on. And then we can take this and build a product on it that we then sell to customer X. Now you start getting to interesting things where, sure, ChatGPT is maybe better at just broad general knowledge or broad general math, but I need an LM that's very good at, I don't know, understanding SEO, right? Maybe, and then you absorb all the unique special knowledge about SEO and backlinking and current strategies for it, and then that's a different model that's far more fine tuned for it, and then you can charge subscriptions for that as well, and you're differentiated enough. You have differentiated knowledge coming in for the training, and then there's a purpose for all this content that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that there's got to be, if you look at the layers, if you will, at least from like a content creation standpoint, there's the data layer, then there's going to be like the AI layer, where we see it is like there hasn't been a human knowledge layer that's been created in between, like an editorial layer, a publishing, and a distribution one. So for us, it's how do we create that human knowledge layer, which pretty much today is like Reddit, it's Quora, so I think that you look at some of those, and if you can focus on particular industries, then I think that you could create some really interesting data that could power AI applications.
Break down the actual mechanics of working with Featured. Where does someone show up? What did they do? How long does it take? Just all the details of the process.
Yeah, so I'll be biased. I'll try to curb my enthusiasm a little bit, but it's really easy. It's really quick, and in some cases, it's really free. So it's a freemium B2B SaaS business model. Anyone can go to featured.com, answer up to 3 questions a month at no cost, and be featured in one of 1,000 publications that work with Featured. So fundamentally how it works is a publisher like Fast Company or Forbes will ask a question on Featured because they need expertise in their articles. We'll invite vetted experts to answer that question. Publishers can then take the best insights, feature them in their articles, and now with just by sharing knowledge to a question, you could be featured in different articles with attribution back to you and your company. So when you go to featured.com, you log in, you're met with thousands of different opportunities from different publishers that you could answer. You've got deadlines that you can answer it by. And then when you submit, it goes to that publisher and they take what they want and they'll notify you if it's been featured.
And from a revenue perspective, is it the businesses typically pay or the individuals pay or both can pay?
Our customers are PR agencies, SEO agencies, in-house marketing teams, and do-it-yourself small business owners. So basically SMBs who don't want to pay an agency, just want to do it themselves. So that's 100% where our revenue comes from. The publishers are able to source expert quotes and content at no cost.
Interesting. So why did you go with that business model of charging the supply side instead of the demand side?
Like I said earlier in the podcast, like when I was running content in 2018, it's 50% of our revenue. If you look at 2025 and some of the guys behind me, like it's been decimated. So
people don't want to pay for content, right?
Publishers' willingness to pay, there is still a market. It's not our market. Like our market is, being able to deliver an expert quote to a journalist who needs it in about 30 minutes or less. If we could do that successfully, then we're able to satisfy a need on the publisher side, on the journalist side, and also benefit the experts who look to us to get featured.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And it's more aligned with where the world is shifting and changing with the decreasing price of, you still need content, you still need expert content, but the willingness to pay for it is, I'm sure, just slashing month over month.
I think it's a shifting, like, going back to our conversation about AI applications, maybe that's the new market. Maybe that's the new market for content. And it seems like actually like a good market. Like if the more unique and valuable your knowledge is, then and the more that it's used, then that's a pretty good justification that, you should get paid for it versus the old model, which is like, hey, you seem to have knowledge about this topic. Will you write an article for $150 and let's pray that it ranks on Google? Like, okay, yeah, it feels like an old model. So I think that publishers as a whole, a lot of their models have gone through a huge transformation over the last 2 years. I mean, it's like recently you saw publishers do affiliate stuff and get hammered by Google's algorithm updates in December, where they were doing stuff that probably shouldn't have ranked really well, but and Google corrected that. Some people were doing it, in a good way. Some weren't, and I think that all of them kind of got with the last algo update. But all that to say, like, publishers are going through a lot, and they're trying to figure it out. And there's got to be a new market that emerges out of all of it.
You think that like there's going to be just massive death from the content publishers over time? Because it's such a new paradigm. Content's so much cheaper. SEO and search in general, there's this big question of like, are we even going to have search in the future? Like, what's your take as someone that's an insider that's plugged into the world of SEO, PR, content creation, publishing? Does the landscape, I mean, we're talking about shifts, but like, is it going to be fundamentally to the point where we only interact with AI? We don't care about the source and attribution, and it's like just abstracted away from search engines in general?
It's a great question. I think that, going back, since we talked a little bit about advice that I got on a road trip, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Billy Beane. He's general manager of the Oakland A's. He's the subject of Moneyball, which
cool.
is written by Michael Lewis. And he said to me, he's like, look, you're never as good as people say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are either. And I think that that's like the answer to your question about, it's like, oh man, our website's not even going to exist. No, it's not going to be that extreme. And it's also not going to be as bad as like death to all publishing.
Right.
Are some publishers going to die? Yeah. But were they dying before? Yeah. Will it be at a faster pace? Maybe. I don't know. So I think that it's somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be as drastic. It's not going to be as bad. But there's definitely going to be, some change to it.
So it's like, don't freak out and panic, but also don't turn a blind eye and bury your head.
Yeah, like run some. It's going back to what did I learn from launching a coffee company with Hugh Jackman? Try stuff, measure stuff, double down on what works, ditch the rest. So I think the same thing goes with content. You got to have a couple players in the game. Talk to a couple AI applications, see what their willingness to pay is. Is there money there? No? Okay, move on and keep an eye on the market in the next 6 months. So I think that that's where the publisher mentality is like, okay, you maybe just lost 90% of your revenue with Google's latest algorithm update with affiliate content. Where are you going to make money now? Like, you need to hit the phones and you need to start talking and exploring and talking in industries to figure out how others are making money and try those models and see what works. So I think that it's like the space that we're in right now, like a lot of spaces are just going through rapid iteration, rapid change, and you have to be a part of that.
One thing that maybe we can close out with this concept of a recurring theme in the conversation also, it sounds like in your life, is follow the money, right? And maybe that's the Moneyball guy that kind of led you down that path. But I think it makes a lot of sense. If there is willingness to pay for something, then there's probably a worthwhile thing to do there. And maybe you have to address scale and size and all this kind of stuff. But if you can figure out the economics and where the money comes from, then there's a business. And one of the things that I have adopted as a belief or I guess belief, right, within my approach to entrepreneurship is money is just a proxy for value. And so people sometimes get fixated around the word money or around dollars or, you shouldn't have too much and money's evil and all this kind of stuff. So there's so much stigma that comes with the word money. But at the end of the day, if someone is willing to trade their time for money and then they spend their money on something that you're doing, it's just a transfer of value. You are creating value for them more so than the value that they spent to get those dollars. And it's just kind of a universal medium for transfer. And I think that that is such a true thing for entrepreneurship is if you're not doing something that's valuable to someone, and it could be a company or person, big, small, it could be, through advertising, so someone's using it for free but they enjoy the thing that they're experiencing in the video game or the article that they're reading. But you have to create value for someone, and if you do, and if you follow that, then money follows, business follows. You can actually build something. And if you don't create value, well, or not enough value, well, then you get $500 from 300 minor league baseball teams, and it doesn't work, right? And you gotta pivot and figure it out. So yeah, I really like that laser focus of find the money, and really it's like create value for someone somewhere.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think that what you just shared is the definition of product market fit. And the tool that I use the most and have used the most over the last decade is Steve Blank's business model canvas. So if you haven't checked that out, it's like, I think it's like 7 or 9 different quadrants, but there's only 2 quadrants that really matter to an entrepreneur. That's the one that's right in the middle, quadrant 1, value proposition. All right. And then quadrant number 2, quadrant number 2 is customers. And product market fit is making a connection between your value proposition and your customers. And so what Steve Blank's business model canvas encourages is like, write your value proposition on a Post-it note, put it there. What do you think your value proposition is? And now who do you think your customers are on a Post-it note? Now go talk to those customers and give them the value proposition. Listen to those customers. What is the value that they actually need from the service or whatever you're describing? Cross off the Post-it note, put on something different, go talk to more customers until ultimately one of those customers is like, here, I'll give you money for that right now. And that's when you start to build a business.
That is a beautiful, beautiful summation of the entrepreneurial journey. And extra emphasis on the listen to them when they tell you that what you're doing is not valuable. Because I think a lot of people are like, no, you just don't get it. Let me try to explain it to you again and tell you how valuable it is. But if people don't find it valuable, then listen to them and try to find something else that is valuable, and don't get overly married to your ideas.
That's a founder's job. That's an entrepreneur's job. That's my favorite part of the job is like, I try to talk with about 20 customers a week and just like listen and just like, what's your experience like on Featured? Okay. What can we build to better support you? Okay. Like, how do you find out about Featured? Like, just asking questions and listen, and then you're able to iterate and refine and unlock some new features that, could be true for other people like that persona.
I love it. Brett, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your unique knowledge.
Hey, thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you check out this video right here. And if you really enjoyed it and you listened to the end, take 2 seconds and share the love so someone else might find it by clicking the thumbs up button and subscribing. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. But click that button.